Welcome back to another edition of the FloTrack Ranking Show. I'm Kevin Sully. Today's focus, the men's and women's 3,000. We'll also touch on the events we've previously ranked, the 60 hurdles, 800, and the 1,500. But I want to roll out these 3,000 meter rankings right now. Here's the men's top 10, headlined by Berihu Aragawi, who a couple weeks ago ran an impressive 3,000 over in Karlsruhe. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, the Olympic 1,500 meter champion, comes in at number 2. Joshua Cheptegei, an Olympic champion himself. Number 3, Adel Marcell 4. Jacob Kiplimo 5. Getnet Wale 6. McSwain 7. Katir 8. Barega 9. And Chalimo 10. A lot of good people we had to leave off this list, but the reason Aragawi gets the number 1 spot, 7:26 in Karlsruhe, just blew out the field. And it was a field that included Adel Marcell, who we all saw how good he was at the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix. But here's Aragawi, top 5 all-time. Now, Ethiopia is completely stacked in this event, not just with performances this year, but if you look at potential people that they could put on the line between Wale, Barega, doesn't even include Kajelka. Girma as well has run well. So number 2, I have Jakob Ingebrigtsen. Hasn't run indoors yet this year, but has run indoors in the past. Did post a video recently on his Instagram. Training looks to be going pretty well. I know that his father, who is his coach, has stepped back because of health issues, and the brothers are coaching themselves now. Obviously wish his father well. I don't know when Jakob is slated to debut, but I really think for him, the 3,000 is the perfect distance, which is why I have no problem putting him at number 2. We know how good he is at the 15 and the 5. That's the challenge here. It's hard enough ranking for indoors because a lot of people don't show up or they show up late. But also you're picking an event that isn't contested that often outdoors at the professional level, so you're having to make some guesses. And there are some 3,000s and 2 miles, but you don't want to read too much into that. Like, do you weight the pre-classic 2 mile that happened after the Olympics, or do you weight the Olympic 5,000 or 1,500 more? There's a little bit of a push and pull there. So Cheptegei is in there at number 3. He's really versatile. We know him as a 10,000 meter world record holder, but he's run really well when the shorter distances have been offered. Number 4, Marcell. So Marcell ran at the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix after losing to Aragawi, and then basically does to the field what Aragawi did to him. 7:30 for a national record, wins by 7 seconds. That's enough for me to put him that high up on the list. And if you're going just on people who have run this year, well, you'd probably put him second right behind the guy who beat him earlier this year. But solid performance for Marcell. As I mentioned, a lot of these other guys we have not seen yet, but this is a very deep event. Mohamed Katir, McCullough's countryman, should be really good at this because we've seen him run really well in the 5 and the 15. Barega, obviously very solid. And then Chalimo. I mean, Chalimo, we know how good Chalimo is. We know that he's a medalist, but I'm putting him there at 10 for the time being. If he runs more, he can obviously move up. Women's side of things, I think Sifan Hassan should be considered the clear number 1. Nian Saba, I have her second. Sagai, Muir, Obiri, Debut Stafford, Hailu, Gade, Tay, and then Purrier St. Pierre rounds out the top 10. So obviously we know why Hassan's going to be number 1. Nian Saba was so good after the Olympics, and this would be a perfect distance for her because the more she moves down in distance, I think the better she gets. Let's look this year, though, at the women's 3,000. Leading the way is Alicia Monson, who ran that time at Milrose. I put Debut Stafford, though, on the list, obviously based on what she's done when it comes to major championships, but also her close. Like, you can't discount how good of a close she had in that New Balance meet to blow everybody out of the water. She was just following along. But a lot of these women have not run yet or have not run a 3,000 meter race yet, so it's pretty TBD. Gade, I think the 3,000 is at the low end of her range. 5,000, 10,000 meter world record holder, just like Joshua Cheptegei, but I still think she'd be really solid. This is another situation where Ethiopia is going to send an absolutely stacked team, and there's some balance, though, between the countries. So if Hassan shows up, Nian Saba shows up, Sagai shows up, Muir, and Debut Stafford, you could have 5 or 6 countries with guaranteed medal threats. Now, I don't know if all of everybody's best is going to show up, but that is a situation, which reminds me of 2018. This was a pretty good race. You had Dababa, Hassan, and Muir. So hopefully we'll see some big names show up to this race once again. Yeah, you had Obiri finishing 4th in that race. I hope that is repeated, although we have not seen many of these women yet. But I'm still putting them on the rankings, just giving you a hypothetical. In a couple weeks, we'll move some people off if they haven't raced yet. Perrier St. Pierre, put her 10th there. Again, she's really good combo, 15.5. She was entered to run against Debut Stafford, which would have been a great race, would have been an opportunity to move way up. Putting her there based on the Millrose Mile. I think that was a solid performance, and I think if she gets in a 3K, she will be perfectly fine. But yeah, that's that group right there. Debut Stafford, I think, is one to watch. She's entered in the 5,000 this weekend at BU. Don't know if she's running or rabbiting yet. Her teammates are there, but keep an eye on her. She could string together a series of great races and be in the mix, no doubt about it. Let's go to some other events, just see what we can update here. Men's 60, the big story there this past week was Lamont Marcel Jacobs debuting in Berlin and running a pretty fast time out there, 6:51 as his opener. Looked good in the opening heat, and then this was the final for Jacobs. Ran 6:47 last year, but I think if you're a Jacobs fan, you're happy with how things opened up. I have him 3rd, behind Coleman and Bromell. Bromell ran the 200 at New Balance Indoor Grand Prix, said he's not going to run any more indoor races. So of the people who have run this year, I would put Jacobs in there 2nd. I don't think too many people would argue with that, just given Coleman's history in the 60. Baker in there at 4. Sue has not run yet. Bracy we haven't seen yet. Makai Williams of Oregon, Terrence Jones of Texas Tech, 2 collegians who no doubt are going to race more and more. And then Noah Lyles. I put him in there. It becomes a logjam when you get outside of that top tier. Like once you get to mid 6.5s, like right around here, it's tough to sort it out. I gave it to Lyles just based on the fact he had 2 races back-to-back, looked solid in Millrose, but then really improved when it came time for New Balance Indoor Grand Prix. Don't know how many more of these he could run. And the margins here are so tiny with hundredths of a second. So I put Lyles in that spot. Credit to him, he's running. Arthur Cisse was in that race against Lamont Jacobs over in Berlin. Women's side of things, the big move came from Makai Briscoe. All the way up to 5th. I told you to watch her going into New Balance Indoor Grand Prix. She moves up into the top 5. I knew she had it in there. It was just a matter of her running that race. She is now the world leader in the women's 60. And right behind her is Mary Beth St. Price, who is sitting in 8th. And then in between them, Brianna Williams, 7th. Now, Williams ran the 7:09 in the semi, came back, lost to Briscoe in the final. So Briscoe deservedly in that spot. Ahore we haven't seen. Toulouse we haven't seen. Fraser Price we haven't seen. Thompson R ran once, but it was outside, going to run in Birmingham. But Briscoe could actually be number 2 based on who's actually going to end up competing at World Indoors. Daryl Nada had a good win over in Berlin. 60 hurdles was another interesting one where you had a really stacked race against Grant Holloway. It didn't matter. Grant Holloway still won. Trey Cunningham, though, got 2nd, beats Devin Allen and Daniel Roberts. So the collegian, I move up to number 2. Don't know if he's going to run World Indoors. Don't know if that's going to work out. We've seen collegians do that in the past, though. But he's number 2. Martin Odegaard 4. Pereira and Manga ran over in Berlin. And then the women's side, Williams won again. Let's pull up the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix results. 783 to 788. Kenny Harrison still has the world lead, but that's 2 good weekends in a row for Danielle Williams. So I have her in there in number 2. I don't know if Camacho Quinn's going to run. We haven't seen her yet. So Williams could actually enter the World Indoor Championships as the big favorite. 800, the only big movement on the men's side was Mariona Garcia of Spain. Now, Mariona Garcia, interesting. Let's look at this guy's profile. He beats Bryce Hoppel in Staten Island with this huge last 150. So he's the world leader, 145.12. All right, what did he do earlier this year? Let's look at results. 149 for second place. Ran 344 and 359, 344 split in the Millrose Games mile, and then got 7th and 359. All right, let's look at his progression, though. Like, what sort of times was he clocking before this? 151 in 2017, 149 in 2018, 145.6, but only a 146 last year. 1500, never gotten under 340. So this was his PB overall in the 800, not just his indoor PB. This was his best time, and he had run 145.6. This guy likes the indoors. So with the way the 8 is, it might seem a bit reactionary. Oh, he has one big race. Why are you moving him all the way to number 6? But everybody is so close in here. And there's still a lot of mystery about the top 2 or top 3 because you want to see Brazier actually run an 800. But Career hasn't run. Amos hasn't run. Brazier's going to run a 600 this weekend, which means he'll have a 400 and a 600. If he runs any sort of 800, I think we can justify putting him number 1 just because a lot of people aren't running, and then the people that are haven't really put down a time that separates them from everybody else. Women, we saw Natoya Gould win, runs the world lead, 159. But I still have her in 7th just because Wilson beat her at Milrose, and I'm looking at head-to-head here as well. Jenny Selman comes in number 10, and that is because she ran 2 flat. Remember, we had Brooke Feldmeyer in there last week, but that gets supplanted by Selman, who ran 2:00.70 to get a win in Glasgow. So good run for her. These results just came in from Spain with Nalyanya and Career. So those were not factored in. They have a chance to get ranked coming in to next week's ranking. So still a lot up in the air. Athingmo, number 1. Keely Hodgkinson, 2. And then I think it's really hard to separate everything else out. 1500, the last one that we'll do. Not much changed with the men. Not much changed with the women. We didn't really have any reason to shift those results around. So big news is Grant Holloway defends his turf in the 60 hurdles. Lamont Jacobs back in the 60. Makai Briscoe moving up in the women's 60 along with Brianna Williams. And the Jamaican women are going to be a force to be reckoned with at the World Indoor Championships in those high hurdles. And those 3K rankings. Just keep an eye on them. A lot of names, a lot of shifting could happen in the coming weeks. But that's it for this edition of the FloTrack Ranking Show. Check out our YouTube page. Subscribe to the FloTrack YouTube page where you can find all these rankings, Gordon's NCAA show as well this week, and track and the race breakdown series that we've been doing with Carl Lewis. We'll talk to you guys next time.